What's going on, everybody? Khalipa's Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, we're going to be doing a quick comparison between the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G and the Samsung Galaxy A73 5G. Now, before we go any further, I do want to remind you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And if you want to learn more about either of these phones individually, I will be linking to several other videos about them in the description, as well as some information about pricing and availability. But with that being said, let's get started. So with the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G, we're getting a 6.5-inch 120Hz Super AMOLED display with a resolution of 1080p, a PPI of 405, an aspect ratio of 20:9, and an 85.4% screen-to-body ratio. With the Samsung Galaxy A73 5G, we're getting a 6.7-inch 120Hz Super AMOLED Plus display with a 1080p resolution, a PPI of 392, and an aspect ratio of 20:9. So for the most part, these displays are pretty much the same. The main difference here is that, as you can see, the Samsung Galaxy A73 5G is a little bit larger, and the display technology with the Super AMOLED Plus versus a regular Super AMOLED is going to be a little bit better with the A73 5G, but honestly, in my opinion, you really can't tell the difference a whole lot. Both of them have great colors, good brightness. The viewing angles are also really good, and I can tell you from experience, when you're outside in the sun, for example, both phones are really easy to see, so it really just comes down to size. If you're consuming a lot of content like watching videos, playing games, or even reading, I feel like a larger display is probably going to be better, but I know at the same time, some of you might not want to have a really large phone, so again, if you want the largest display possible, then obviously the Samsung Galaxy A73 5G will have an advantage, but if you want something that's a little bit more compact while still having the benefits overall of a larger display, then the A53 5G will be perfectly fine too. But again, at the end of the day, both phones do have really good displays, and you really can't go wrong with either. Now, as far as storage goes, both of these phones are getting 128GB of internal storage with microSD card expansion, and keep in mind, both of them do also have other variants with 256, but for the purpose of this video, the phones in my hand do only have 128. Now, that being said, in general, for the average user, I would say 128GB is a good amount of storage, and you're probably not going to have to worry about running out. Now, that being said, if you're more of a power user, if you have a bunch of mobile games, for example, or maybe a lot of 4K videos that take up a lot of space, in that kind of situation, you might want 256GB, but again, these phones also do have microSD card expansion, so you can always offload stuff like photos and videos, and that of course is going to get you even more space. Now, neither of these phones have wireless charging, which honestly isn't really that big of a surprise, but for security features, both phones do have really nice looking in-display fingerprint scanners. Definitely gives them a more modern premium touch, and they both have face unlock as well. But starting with the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G, let's go ahead and give these fingerprint scanners a try and see how well they work. There we go, one more time. And there we go. Moving on to the A73 5G. There we go, one more time. And there we go. So as you can see, both fingerprint scanners are real fast and responsive, no issues whatsoever. And again, remember, both phones also do have face unlock, so if you want to use that instead, you always can. Now, taking a look at the camera setups here, with the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G, we got a nice looking hole punch design for the front facing camera, and this camera is 32 megapixels. Then on the back, we got a quad camera setup with a 64 megapixel main camera, a 12 megapixel ultra wide camera, a 5 megapixel macro camera, and a 5 megapixel depth sensing camera. With the Samsung Galaxy A73 5G, we got pretty much the same design for the front-facing camera, although this camera is for whatever reason a little bit bigger, and this camera is also 32 megapixels. Then on the back, we got another quad camera setup with a 108 megapixel main camera, a 12 megapixel ultra-wide camera, a 5 megapixel macro camera, and a 5 megapixel depth sensing camera. So as far as features go, as you can see here, these phones are pretty much the same. Both of them have essentially everything you could expect in a mid-range phone: high megapixel main camera, macro camera, ultra-wide camera, all that stuff. But I would say in general, the quality of the Samsung Galaxy A73 5G is going to be a little bit better than the A53 5G. Not by a whole lot, but if you want to get the best photos possible between the two, then I would give the Samsung Galaxy A73 5G a slight edge. Now, I don't normally show photo samples in these kinds of comparisons. I typically save that for the camera reviews, but since these phones are so similar in so many different ways, in this case, I did feel like it was necessary. So as you can see here, this photo was taken using the full power of the main camera with the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G, and it's definitely a real nice photo. The details, colors, lighting, everything looks great. So if you are taking a lot of photos and you want to make sure the quality is really good, you're not going to go wrong with this phone. Now, this next photo was taken with the Samsung Galaxy A73 using the whole 108 megapixels of the camera. Now, between the two, again, I personally do think the Samsung Galaxy A73 5G does take slightly better photos, but I'm really going to let the quality speak for itself, because when it comes to photos, this kind of thing is really subjective. But at the end of the day, I would say if you're taking a lot of photos, whether it's for more casual purposes or something professional, you really won't go wrong with either phone. But in my experience, experience, again, the Samsung Galaxy A73 5G does take slightly better photos. Now for video, both phones can record in up to 4K at 30 frames per second in both the rear and front cameras. So again, same kind of thing, both phones can record real high quality videos, and honestly the difference between the two in quality is going to be pretty minimal, but I still would give a slight edge to the A73 5G. Now as far as RAM and processor go, with the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G, we're getting 6GB of RAM with the Samsung Exynos 1280 processor. With the Samsung Galaxy A73 5G, we're getting 8GB of RAM with the Qualcomm Snapdragon 778G 5G processor. Now keep in mind with the A53 5G, although this phone in my hand does have 6GB of RAM, there is another version that has 8. But that being said, I did run Geekbench 5 benchmark tests on both of these phones, and with the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G, we're getting a single core score of 742 and a multi-core score of 1910. With the Samsung Galaxy A73 5G, we're getting a single core score of 773 and a multi-core score of 2888. So as you can see, there is quite a difference here. It's not really going to be like night and day. I do think both phones perform really well, but clearly the Samsung Galaxy A73 5G is going to be much faster. I mean, this phone goes up against stuff like the S21 FE, Google Pixel 6a, and really all the entry-level flagship phones, despite this phone really not being an entry-level flagship phone itself. But with the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G, this is still very much a mid-range phone, and while in general this is not a slow phone by any means, between the two you will see a difference in performance. So if you're doing higher end activities, for example like mobile gaming, or you're just going to be on your phone a lot in general, then I would say the Samsung Galaxy A73 5G will have a huge advantage for you. But if you're just doing more basic activities like web browsing, social media, and stuff like that, and you're not really going to be doing super high performance activities, then I would say the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G will be perfectly fine. Now what I recommend doing is running this test on your current phone and comparing your results to these, and that's going to give you a better idea of which phone will be a good upgrade for you. Because depending on what you currently have, while the A73 5G is obviously the faster of the two, you might find that the A53 5G is a perfectly good enough upgrade already. Now as far as the battery goes, these phones are pretty much the same with 5000 mAh batteries that support 25W fast charging, so both phones are going to have great battery life and longevity. And in addition to this, if you have a 25W fast charger, you will be able to charge these phones a lot quicker, and it will save you a bit of time. In addition to this, both phones also do have NFC, so if you like to make contactless mobile payments using tap and pay, you can do that with either phone. But in conclusion, which of these phones is better? In general, in pretty much every way, the Samsung Galaxy A73 5G is the better device. Now that being said, there are certain areas like the battery for example, where these phones are pretty much the exact same, but even in areas where there are subtle differences, I would say the Samsung Galaxy A73 5G will always have the edge. For example, with the display, even though these displays are both really good and really similar, the A73 5G is a little bit larger, and it has slightly better display technology with a Super AMOLED Plus display as opposed to a regular Super AMOLED display. For the camera, again, they are also pretty close, but again, the A73 5G is still just a little bit better. And when it comes to the processor, the Samsung Galaxy A73 5G, as you saw, is quite a bit faster. So in general, between the two, if you want the best display, best camera, and highest performance, then I would say the Samsung Galaxy A73 5G is going to be the better choice. But if you're just looking for a solid mid-range phone that runs really well, has a great camera, a good display, and a good battery, then the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G will not be a bad option either. And another thing to keep in mind is that if you're in the US, the A53 5G is the only phone carriers offer between the two. And while obviously you still can get the Samsung Galaxy A73 5G on eBay or something, you're most likely not going to get as good a deal. Now of course, if you're outside the US, this is not going to matter at all. But again, if you are in the US, keep in mind that you're probably going to get a better deal through a carrier with the A53 5G. But in general, at the end of the day, I do think these are two of the best upper mid-range phones on the market, and they do provide quite a bit of value for the money. Now again, if you want to learn more about either of them, I will be linking to several other videos about them in the description, and stay tuned because my camera reviews for them are coming soon as well. But this concludes my comparison between the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G and the Samsung Galaxy A73 5G. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you found this information useful as well. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button, and as always, I will see you in the next video.